A new kind of warfare is on the horizon, one that could disrupt life as we know it. As tensions between Russia and NATO escalate, the possibility of a nuclear attack in space has become a real concern. What would happen if Russia unleashed an electromagnetic pulse from orbit? Could it send our satellites offline and plunge the world into chaos? In this video, we dive deep into NATO's growing fears and the alarming developments that are pushing us closer to the brink. Before we dive into today's topic, take a moment to subscribe to our channel as we grow and inform you of the latest updates and insights on the world's most pressing developments. What exactly is an EMP attack in space? An electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, is a burst of electromagnetic radiation that occurs when a nuclear weapon is detonated. While most of us are familiar with the devastating effects of nuclear explosions on the ground, a nuclear explosion in space could be just as, if not more, catastrophic. The destructive potential of an EMP attack in space cannot be overstated. The explosion sends out a burst of gamma rays. These gamma rays interact with the atoms in the Earth's upper atmosphere, knocking electrons off their atoms, creating a massive surge of high-energy electrons. And these free electrons are then captured by the Earth's magnetic field, accelerating them and creating a powerful electromagnetic wave that radiates downward. This wave can affect electrical circuits, even at great distances from the blast site. The damage would not be limited to a single country or continent. It would be global. Satellites in low Earth orbit and geostationary orbit could be rendered useless, causing a domino effect that would disrupt everything from GPS navigation to international banking systems, from weather forecasting to military intelligence. Military infrastructure that relies on these satellites would be severely compromised. Planes could lose navigation, ships could drift off course, and the financial markets could face unprecedented chaos. And let's not forget the potential impact on ground-based electrical grids. The electromagnetic waves could induce currents strong enough to overload power lines, transformers, and other critical infrastructure, potentially plunging entire regions into prolonged blackouts. Hospitals, emergency services, and public utilities could be paralyzed, leaving millions without electricity, water, or essential services. Why is this a particular concern now? The very fabric of modern civilization, everything from water supply systems to hospitals, from internet communications to national defense, relies heavily on a functioning satellite network. Disabling that network would be like taking the first move in a chess game where every subsequent move only worsens the situation for the opponent. The U.S. National Security Council has expressed growing concerns regarding Russia's potential use of nuclear weapons in space. Following discussions within NATO, the U.S. and its allies are now seriously evaluating the threat posed by such an attack. General Stephen Whiting, commander of the U.S. Space Command, has been at the forefront of these discussions, raising alarms about Russia's potential development of space-based nuclear weapons. General Whiting's statements have highlighted the gravity of the situation, emphasizing that the threat is not just theoretical. NATO's recent intelligence assessments suggest that Russia is actively positioning itself to conduct operations that could cripple the West's space-based infrastructure. This has led NATO to consider new defense strategies, including the possibility of deploying countermeasures to protect their assets in space. So, what exactly are Russia's capabilities when it comes to conducting such an attack? Over the years, Russia has invested heavily in anti-satellite technology, including direct descent missiles that can reach and destroy satellites in orbit. But perhaps more concerning is their potential development of nuclear-powered space weapons. These nuclear-powered weapons, if deployed, could be detonated in space to create an EMP strong enough to affect multiple satellites simultaneously. According to military analysts, Russia's recent satellite launches indicate that they are positioning themselves for such operations. The satellite's coplanar movement with U.S. satellites suggests a level of precision that could be used to target key American space assets. Faced with these threats, NATO is actively developing countermeasures to protect its space assets. One of the key initiatives is Operation Olympic Defender, which focuses on bolstering the defense of space-based infrastructure. This operation involves close cooperation between NATO members, sharing intelligence, and enhancing the technological capabilities needed to respond to any potential attacks. In addition to these defensive measures, NATO is also investing in satellite protection technologies such as hardened electronics that can withstand EMP blasts and new counter-satellite weapons designed to neutralize threats before they reach critical space assets. This arms race in space is reminiscent of the Cold War era, but the stakes are even higher today as our reliance on space technology has grown exponentially. The possibility of a nuclear attack in space raises serious geopolitical concerns. If Russia were to deploy such weapons, it could spark a new kind of arms race, one that extends beyond Earth's atmosphere. The implications of this are profound. Not only would it challenge the existing balance of power, but it would also force nations to rethink their defense strategies and alliances. For NATO, the challenge is clear. How do you defend against an attack that could come from space? And how do you deter an adversary like Russia, which seems willing to explore these extreme measures? The answers to these questions are still being debated, but one thing is certain. The race to control space is now in full swing, and the consequences of losing this race could be dire. As nations prepare for the possibility of space warfare, the role of international law becomes increasingly important. The Outer Space Treaty of 1907, which prohibits the placement of nuclear weapons in space, is now being scrutinized as nations like Russia push the boundaries of what is legally permissible. However, the effectiveness of these treaties is being called into question. As technological advancements outpace the development of international law, countries may find loopholes or simply disregard the agreements in favor of national security interests. The potential for a legal and diplomatic crisis is real as nations grapple with the need to protect their interests in space while avoiding a catastrophic conflict. The threat of space-based nuclear attacks could also have a significant impact on global power dynamics. If Russia were to succeed in disrupting the West's space infrastructure, it could shift the balance of power in favor of authoritarian regimes. This could embolden other countries to pursue similar strategies, leading to a world where space becomes the ultimate battlefield for the United States and its NATO allies. Maintaining superiority in space is now more critical than ever. Failure to do so could result in a loss of global influence and a weakening of the alliances that have maintained peace and stability for decades. The stakes are incredibly high, and the outcome of this emerging conflict will shape the future of international relations. As the threat of space warfare becomes more apparent, the role of the media in shaping public perception cannot be underestimated. The way this issue is presented to the public can influence government policies and international relations. For example, heightened public concern could lead to increased pressure on governments to invest more in space defense, or conversely, to seek diplomatic solutions to avoid conflict. The media's role in this ongoing situation is pivotal as it helps shape the narrative around space warfare and its implications. The possibility of a nuclear attack in space has accelerated the technological arms race among global powers. Countries are now investing heavily in advanced space weapons, satellite defense systems, and cyber capabilities to ensure they can protect their interests in orbit. This arms race is not just about developing new weapons, but also about creating the infrastructure to defend against them. From anti-satellite lasers to cyber defenses designed to protect critical space assets, the race is on to develop the technologies that will determine the future of warfare in space. The prospect of nuclear weapons in space also raises profound ethical and moral questions. Is it justifiable to develop and deploy weapons that could have such devastating consequences for humanity? And what responsibility do nations have to prevent the militarization of space? These questions are at the heart of the current debate over space warfare. As nations pursue their security interests, they must also consider the broader implications of their actions. The potential for space to become a new domain of conflict has sparked a global conversation about the ethics of war and the future of humanity in the cosmos. As we look to the future, the possibility of a nuclear attack in space by Russia remains a chilling prospect. NATO's concerns are not just about the immediate threat, but also about the long-term implications for global security. The race to dominate space is intensifying, and the decisions made in the coming years will have far-reaching consequences. The looming threat of a nuclear attack in space by Russia has set the stage for a new type of Cold War, one that extends far beyond our atmosphere and into the vastness of space. The decisions made by global leaders in the coming months and years will define the rules of engagement for this new frontier. Will international treaties be able to evolve fast enough to prevent the militarization of space? Will NATO and its allies strengthen their defenses and deter Russia from taking these dangerous steps? The stakes have never been higher. As technology advances and new players enter the arena, the geopolitical landscape is set to change in ways we can hardly predict. One thing is certain, the race for dominance in space is no longer a matter of science fiction. It's happening right now, and the world is holding its breath to see what happens next.